This time on Allies or Enemies, we are looking at Tiny Epic Galaxies and its expansion Beyond the Black, which was supplied by the publisher, although the thoughts are all our own. Both Tiny Epic Galaxies and its expansion are designed by Scott Almes. Tiny Epic Galaxies puts 1 to 5 players in control of a tiny fleet of spaceships, searching the galaxy for inhabitable planets to house an ever-expanding population, which, in game terms, is done via a really clever system of rolling dice and taking actions, which legitimately feels much bigger than this small box would suggest. While Beyond the Black adds further depth with pilots, special ships, and an uncharted galaxy in the far depths of space. But let's come back to all of that in just a moment. For now, let's look at how it plays.
In Tiny Epic Galaxies, players begin with 2 ships, a secret goal, a few resources, and 4 dice, but all of this will build quickly. Each turn, players first roll all of their available dice, and then take the actions on those dice in any order. Move lets you move 1 ship to any planet, either on the surface to take the immediate action, or on the colony track to work towards adding that planet to your empire. The diplomacy and economy actions both move your ships down the corresponding tracks. When you reach the end of these, you gain the planet, along with its points and special ability. The energy and culture icons each gain resources depending on the number of ships you have either on or orbiting the corresponding planets. And finally, this city icon lets you either pay resources to advance your civilization, gaining dice or ships, or take the action on a previously gained planet. Resources also help in other ways. Spending energy lets you reroll dice, and spending culture lets you copy any action dice an opponent takes on their turn, which is very important. The game ends when someone reaches 21 points. Then everyone adds up any points from secret goals, and the greatest galactic empire is named.
While the base game is already surprisingly replayable due to the large variety of planets and the variable nature of actions being based on the roll of the dice, Beyond the Black does add a fairly big layer to all of this. Along with a bunch more planets and secret goals, the 2 biggest additions from Beyond the Black are pilots and unexplored space. Pilots cost 2 matching dice, with the type dependent on the different ships they fly. And once hired, they replace one of the boring normal ships with a more stylish, vaguely IP-inspired ship, along with some kind of special power. Visiting unexplored space lets you flip the top card of the exploration deck. If it's a green discovery planet, you can either keep it and gain the benefit, or place it on the table and try again, up to a maximum of 3 face-up planets. If it's a red danger planet, you have to take it and stop exploring and pay the penalty, which is sometimes tying up your ship on a colonizing track. Both types of new cards also have exploration badges, which are added at the end of the game, with bonus points going to the player with the most of each, which adds an extra element of surprise for endgame scoring.
Tiny Epic Galaxy plays from 1 to 5 players, and it works pretty well at all of those counts. This is largely because of the follow system, where on other players' turns you can spend 1 culture to follow any action they perform, which means you're always involved, as long as you have culture to spend. In a 5-player game, your culture bank will likely run dry after 1 or 2 other players, but in 3 or even 4-player games, if you spend culture wisely, you can stay involved at least most of the time. At 2 players, this system really shines, as every action is a double-edged sword, and you're gonna need to weigh your benefit against what your opponent will get out of it if they follow. It's a real game of Space Cat and Space Mouse. There's also a solo mode called Rogue Galaxy, with the back of each player sheet acting as a different level of AI. It's an easy-to-control system that does a pretty good job of replicating a human opponent, and the higher levels are a legitimate challenge. The expansion also adds a whole new set of these that works with all of the new stuff.
One of the key selling points of the Tiny Epic series is that the games are affordable, and as such, don't expect this to be produced to the moon. or moons. But what it may lack in extra fanciness, it makes up for in usability. The custom dice are great, the ships are fun, and the planets actually have a fair bit of personality, with some nice little details. Also, the simple planet tracks are one of those clever systems that Tiny Epic is famous for. The one tricky is that the player boards are a bit tight and fiddly, and you will find yourself knocking the various track markers. Beyond the Black adds a bit more personality to all of this, with the custom ships that have sneaky little nods to franchises, both Trek and Wars, pilots from around the galaxy, an added scoreboard, which is actually a huge help, and the exploration planets, whose round shape is weirdly satisfying. It still isn't going to win any beauty contest, but it fills the promise of packing a lot into a little.
Recently, we did a ranking of all Tiny Epic games, and Tiny Epic Galaxies topped our list, and that was without the expansion. Now that we have played it with Beyond the Black, this is number one with a bullet or a laser blast. It certainly helps that it shines at 2 players, but even for 3 or 4, we think this one does the best job of fulfilling the promise of a big game in a little box of anything in the series. This isn't going to replace your full experiences of games like Gaia Project or Eclipse, but it does an awful lot in a small playtime with a minimal set of rules, and that follow mechanic goes a long way to keeping everyone involved at least most of the time. If you want a space game that works well for new players, fits easily on your shelf, and captures that spacey theme, this is pretty hard to beat, especially with the expansion. And that is it. Have you played Tiny Epic Galaxy? Is it your favorite Tiny Epic game? Do you recommend any other games that capture a space theme in a small box? And as always, please do like and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you all next time for another game.